Here is my review of Season 1 of the Book of Boba Fett. All right, I'm going to break this review down into a few parts here. I'm going to talk about the first 4 episodes. I'm going to talk a little bit about 5 and 6, and then I'm going to talk about the finale. So this season of the Book of Boba Fett kind of revolves around him on Tatooine, and he is there to try and bring peace to the region. At the same time, we have the Pike Syndicate who has come in, and they are running spice through the planet, basically, and Boba Fett wants to stop them. The first 4 episodes were not all that engaging, and in fact, for a 7-episode season, Boba Fett was not, he took a back seat for 5 and 6 entirely. But the first 4 were kind of building up a team that was going to be utilized in the finale. And it wasn't done in the most engaging or imaginative way. It kind of felt like a CW show to me in the way it was executed. And the only really thing that stands out in the first 4 episodes was the episode where he gets Slave 1 back and he has to go in and destroy this biker gang who killed a bunch of Tusken Raiders, which we find out later was actually the Pike Syndicate that took out the Tusken Raiders, and they wanted to blame it on that gang so that it would upset Fett. To what end? I don't really know. It doesn't really make sense for them to do that, for him to go after them, because were they a threat? It's kind of weird the way the writing was in this season. A lot of it didn't quite make sense, and especially some of the action was very funky. So the first 4 episodes were very uneven in the storytelling. It would go back and forth with his history, what happened in the past, the future, and, the past, somewhat of the past, the middle part of his past, and where he was currently. And it really was disjointed, let's put it that way. Then we had episode 5 hit, which was awesome. But it was actually The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1, as well as the next episode, which was The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 2, and brought back a bunch of characters. So 5 was good. It kind of told us what happened after The Mandalorian and answered a bunch of questions so we could move forward with the story. In that episode, Din Djarin gets a new ship. And as soon as I saw the ship, I said, it's one of those Naboo fighters that has a cockpit in the back that would have a droid. And I said, that's where Grogu is going to end up sitting. And I've got some theories on what's going to happen with Din Djarin here coming up in the future, because in that ship, one of the new Naboo starfighters, there's nowhere to put any real bodies. Like his, when he had the Razor Crest, he could hold, I think it was like 8 people if he had to. Well, he can't do that with the Naboo starfighter, which was pretty cool. When they introduced that was a pretty good episode. He took the same route that Anakin did on the pod race, which was really neat. It was really cool, really well done, really well executed. Then the next episode was, at the end of that episode, episode 5, Fennec comes to Din and says, we need you to help get rid of the Pike Syndicate back on Tatooine to help Boba Fett. She says, I have to do something first. So that's what leads us to episode 6, where we have the reunion of the century. We have Din Djarin, we have R2-D2, we have Ahsoka, and we have Luke Skywalker in this episode. And we are also introduced to the live version of Cad Bane at the end of the episode, which was pretty freaking awesome, actually. And we had Cobb Vanth back in it, and he does get shot at the end of the episode, and he was strangely missing from the season finale. He only got shot in the shoulder, so I'm not sure why he wasn't in the season finale. Maybe he's healing, but the rest of the town did come to aid those who needed them. But that 5th episode, I want to talk about something that was really, or the 6th episode, I want to talk about something that was really kind of jarring for me, and I found out why later. For those who don't know, I'm a professional voice actor. It's what I do for a living. I've been a full-time voice actor for the last 8 years and got into the industry 11 years ago. And, there's a lot of talk about technology in the industry, and I'm not really worried about computerized voices taking over my job or anybody else's job in the short term, because they can't even get people to look right yet digitally, let alone all the different nuances and emotions of the voice. Well, in that episode with Luke Skywalker, it was great to see him. And I actually thought Mark Hamill had come back to do the voice, but he sounded, younger. And he would only speak in short sentences, and it was very disjointed, and it gave me a very uncomfortable feeling. And I'm like, why would they bring, Mark Hamill back and not have him speak like a normal human being? And, people could argue, well, that's him training Grogu to be a Jedi, and it was just his training. But at the same time, there was no emotion behind it. It wasn't human. It wasn't normal. It was only later that I found out that they used a computer to do Mark Hamill's voice. And that explained everything. And it's not a good move, Disney. I'm telling you right now, not a good move to use computerized voices. Use real people. If you can't get Mark Hamill to do it because he's too busy or he wants too much money, get somebody who sounds like him. Don't use computerized voices. People can pick up on that. It gives you a very uneasy feeling. It's not natural. So there's my little soapbox with that episode. It was cool to see Luke back. They did a much better job with his face. It wasn't perfect, but looks like they hired the same people who might have done the fixing of Luke's face on YouTube. Which leads us to the finale. So let's talk about the finale, and I'll give you my overall score for the entire season. This finale, I rolled my eyes probably a half a dozen times throughout the episode. The action was actually ridiculous. We had some incredible action in The Mandalorian, especially at the end of that first season when you had Moff Gideon come in and try to wipe them all out. There were some really cool scenes in that. But in this, I mean, most people who are probably watching my review have seen it. It was ridiculous. I mean, it got to the point where the group of people were running down the street with one of these droids that's got, it's got a force field around it, shooting down the street, and nobody's getting killed, and they're running straight down the street. They're not like hiding to the sides and trying to split up. They're running right down the street, and not a single person gets shot and killed. Like, it was ridiculous. There were about a half a dozen roll my eyes moments in the finale. There were some cool things, too. We got Grogu, who came back. I mean, Luke gave him an option at the end of Season 7 to continue his training and take Yoda's lightsaber, or he could take the armor that Din Djarin had brought him on the planet where Luke was setting up his Jedi Academy. Grogu was going to be his first student, but he takes off to go to be with Din Djarin. In fact, when they have their reunion, it was actually a very sweet moment in the episode, but it was in the middle of some action, so it wasn't as emotional as it could have been. And Grogu does play his part several times during the episode. He does really well. And then in the final shot of the season, we had, well, first of all, Cad Bane does get taken down by Boba Fett in a really cool scene. You think Boba Fett's about to be killed, and that's when he turns the tables on Cad Bane and finally dispatches him, which was actually a pretty cool moment in the episode. And then the final shot is actually Din Djarin in his Naboo starfighter out in space, and you've got Grogu in where the droid sits. And I knew that was going to be what was going to happen. I knew they were going to do that. The minute I saw the starship with the dome, I was like, that is where Grogu is going to go. And they didn't disappoint. It was predictable. And that's my whole point in this, is everything in this was predictable in that final episode. The action was not executed very well. The story was it was okay, but like I said, Cobb Vanth was missing, but everybody else was in it. It was a culmination of the entire season. It did feel like a very cheesy crossover on the CW with some of the DC shows, and it just did not hold the weight of anything that they did in The Mandalorian or anything else. So this season was very disjointed. We had some surprise guests. I'm kind of sorry to see Cad Bane be dispatched so quickly. I'm hoping, in the future, we may see some other characters like maybe Ezra Bridger coming in, Thrawn coming into this. Well, I'm sure with Ahsoka we're going to see Thrawn. Maybe we'll see Ezra Bridger with that as well because, there's more ties with her, possibly with him, and, the Ghost and some other things coming up in the future with Rebels. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with all of this. And they still do need to explain exactly where Ahsoka was during the original trilogy because she was nowhere to be found. She was a character that was created much later. I understand that, but she's so integral in the prequels with the Clone Wars, and they do explain where she was in Episode 3 and not there. but they're going to have to explain her absence in the original trilogy. And there are some ideas out there and some theories as to what is going on with that. So at the end of the day, what do I finally give the Book of Boba Fett Season 1? Well, on a scale of 1 to 5, I have to give it a 3.5. I can't give it a 4. Some of the action was ridiculous, poorly executed. The direction was just not all that well. I think my favorite episode was the one by Bryce Dallas Howard. She directed episode 5, and she did a really good job with it. Was it perfect? No, but it was definitely much better than some of the other episodes in the season. I also liked the episode where he got the Slave One back. But outside of that, this whole season was just very disjointed, very uneven, all over the place. And it was kind of an unnecessary thing, but you can see that this was kind of catalyst as to what they're going to be doing with The Mandalorian coming up. So The Mandalorian Season 3 is actually rumored to be coming out in November or December of this year. So we'll see what they do with that. But now Grogu and Din Djarin are definitely reunited, and we're going to see where that goes. Now, here's my theory. I told you I had a theory on where they're going to be going with this in the future. So Din Djarin was actually dispelled from the Mandalorian family because he had taken his helmet off several times. We've seen him take his helmet off. And so he was no longer allowed to be a Mandalorian, so he was basically, vanquished. He had to go. And he still has the Darksaber. So what I've noticed throughout the first couple of seasons of The Mandalorian is he has some incredible skills with his firearms and the way he handles himself. I think he might be Force sensitive. And with the fact that he can't take on any bodies, I think we're going to see The Mandalorian Season 3 go in a completely different direction. And possibly him and Grogu could end up becoming a team of Jedi. I don't know if that's going to happen, but Luke did mention that, and there was a scene where we got to see a flashback where Grogu was there being trained during the Jedi Purge, so he has some training. And Luke made the comment that it's not like I'm really training him, it's like he's remembering. So I am very curious as to see where this is going to go, because Grogu has a lot of potential being a Jedi and being as young as he is, but Din Djarin's going to die long before he ever becomes mature. So I don't know what the end game in all of this is or where they're going to go with it, but I have this feeling that Din Djarin is Force sensitive, but we'll find out here in the future. He could feel the connection with Grogu, and Luke knew it, Ahsoka knew it, and it was very interesting, some of the dialogue. So some of the best dialogue and some of the best scenes here did involve Din Djarin, Grogu, Ahsoka, and Luke Skywalker. All the other stuff seemed to be kind of white noise in the background. So not the best. I actually enjoyed The Mandalorian Season 1 and 2 much more than I did The Book of Boba Fett. I don't know if they're going to continue with this, but Tatooine is being used. It's like the central hub of the Star Wars universe, and there are so many more worlds. We need to start expanding and seeing some of the other stuff. Now, on a side note, Andor, this is interesting. Andor is one of the shows that is coming out later this year, I think, and Season 1 has been in the bag, but it has already been renewed for a Season 2 before it even premieres. And there's also a rumor that Obi-Wan the first episode of that is going to be on May 4th, so we'll see where that's coming. That's only going to be a 6-episode season, and I hope they don't pull the same stuff that they did here. That is the show where they're going to have to give us the meat of Star Wars. Like, there's some things fans have wanted to see, and that's where it needs to come in. All right, so there's my review on the first season of The Book of Boba Fett. I do give it 3.5 out of 5. Wasn't terrible. Could have been a lot better. But it was still enjoyable. It is Star Wars, but was not executed to the highest of standards. But it was still enjoyable. All right. When the next Star Wars show starts, I will do a recap on the first episode and then, again, do a final recap at the end of the season. But I do look forward to what is coming up in the future, especially I'm really hoping that Obi-Wan show hits it out of the park. All right, we'll see you guys soon. I do appreciate the support. If you haven't, hit the like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You will be notified when I have new videos go up.